big thank you to Simply Safe for sponsoring this video.
You know, with so many outlets in my house, why is it that I never seem to have power where I want it? I recently bought a turntable and speakers, and I want to build a piece of furniture for it to be right here in the center of my room where I have no power. So now I'm trying to figure out, how do you get power in the center of a tiled room? Let's dive into it. First, I will evaluate my options. Power has to come from a source, so where are my closest outlets as is? I have an outlet about 10 feet that way for the TV. Then I also have an outlet about 9 feet this way from the kitchen. The appealing part about this one is I would be creating a hole inside the cabinet where it isn't visible. So I would cut a hole in the bottom of the cabinet, go down into the joist as I'm on a second story, then run over to the middle of the room. Yeah, I think that works, at least in theory. The number one concern I have with going in the joist is if they use blocking. If they included blocking, then I won't have a clear channel to run the wiring, and there isn't a workaround for this distance. But let's cut a hole and see what we find. The first thing I did was cut a hole in the bottom of the cabinet. I want plenty of working space, so I made this large. I'm using a multi-tool as it's only 1/4 inch material that I'm cutting through.
Big access hole. Hello.
Now I needed to make a hole in my subfloor, which is made up of 3/4 inch ply. For this, I switched over to using my Sawzall. During this time, I'm feeling around for any resistance which might be a joist. When I feel like I've hit one, I make that the boundary of my hole.
I don't know if you guys can see it on the camera, but right here is blocking in between the two joists, which is not a great sign. The positive is I have a gap in between the insulation and the bottom side of this blocking to where if they maintain the same pattern all the way down, then I still have a clear runway. I'm actually going to use my phone, since I can't see, as a pair of eyes that can get down there. Yep, they have the same pattern all the way down. So that's good news. If there's going to be blocking, at least I still have a clear way to run wire.
The next step would be for me to cut a hole in my floor, but that's a little scary not knowing if I can make it through, so I decided to run a test. I strung out enough Romex for the length and tried to run it through. If I can make it to the couch, then I'll proceed with cutting a hole.
All right, fingers crossed, folks. Already held up. Got some hold up. Still pretty far from the kink. Yeah, it's just not going.
I thought the kind of floppiness of the Romex would allow it to float over the insulation and make it down, but since that didn't work, I went with something more rigid.
Romex didn't work. I'm gonna try 1/2 inch hex. Cool, that's working. Let me tie another joint to it.
They make a tool called a fish tape for fishing wires. This job, but I couldn't find mine, which is why I'm being resourceful.
It's working. Okay, I have a chase. Yay.
All right, it worked. Since I now have a successful chase, I went to the area I wanted the outlet, moved everything out of the way, and started prepping to cut into my floor.
Somewhere here. Real quick, let me pause and thank this video's sponsor, which is Simply Safe. You guys know that I've used Simply Safe for my personal and commercial shop security for a while now. It's totally customizable home or shop security that focuses equally on up-to-date tech and reliable service. Simply Safe enables you to design a system that best fits your space and ships directly to your doorstep. I recently added a system to my house, and I'm so pleased with how much more effective and easier it is to use than other home systems I've had in the past. I found all of the devices to be very reliable, set up as a breeze, and they're easy to use. I have peace of mind knowing that the interactive monitoring service will call the police if it's alerted to anything. Their team of always-on professionals are easy reachable and always keep lines of communication open for the most protective service. Right now, you can take 20% off your Simply Safe security system, and your first month is free when you sign up for the interactive monitoring service. Visit simplysafe.com/April to learn more. Thank you so much to Simply Safe for keeping my home and shop safe.
So when I bought my floor outlet, this hardware came with it. This hardware will allow me to connect this outlet to the junction box. Also, what came with it was a template for me to use so that I can drill a hole big enough for this junction box and this outlet. I cut out this template, held it onto the floor to trace it, and then cut. For cutting, I first tried my multi-tool with a diamond tip blade, but it was not having much luck. So I switched over to a right angle grinder, which is incredibly more effective, but it does make a much bigger mess. But it's nothing a shop vac can't help with. I went as deep as I could with the round wheel, but then completed the cut through the subfloor using the Sawzall. I'm laughing because I was laughing. And sometimes I feel so barbaric. I thought it was so satisfying cutting a hole in my floor. But getting back to it, I used the claw of my hammer to try and chip away at the tile, but then the jostling actually broke it loose, where I was able to remove it in a single chunk, which gave me access to the subfloor that I could finish nipping off with the Sawzall. Woohoo! Can't stop me! Now where's my pecs? It's here. Okay, that's really, really easy, convenient. Now I'm going to take my Romex to this end, and I'm going to pull it through and feed it to my cabinets. I'm so glad this is working. Now I'm going to go over to my cabinet, pull it through, bringing the Romex to my junction box over there. Oh my gosh, this is so fun. I can't believe this works. All right, don't pull it all the way through. Okay, perfect. I ended up pulling enough through to go up to the outlet in the cabinet and then left that alone and went back to the floor outlet side in order to button it up. First I needed to install the metal junction box. Okay, so I have so many grounds because the code used to be to where you can just go straight from the Romex and into the outlet. But now if you have a metal junction box, you have to ground the junction box by itself and the outlet independently. So now I have an extra pair of copper that goes from the ground screw on the junction box into the pushing connector. Then I take the ground from the Romex wiring coming up and put it into the pushing connector. Then I have a third run of copper that will go from the connector, so from both of these up to the ground screw to the outlet. Everything else was standard for wiring in the rest of the outlet, then also the outlet over on the cabinet side. Cool. I was able to shove the outlet into its hole and start putting back my living room. And yes, I totally cut a hole in my rug around the outlet. Chop, 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 chop. People are gonna think I'm crazy for cutting into my rug, but I think it's clever. Doink! I will always have my speakers and turntable plugged into mine. It doesn't make any sense to me to have a flap or have it covered by my rug. Okay, let me do a last few button ups and we'll call this project done. Over on the cabinet side, I still have a big hole through to my joist. To block this off, I grabbed a scrap piece of ply and screwed it to the cabinet frame. The hole in the cabinet bottom I left as I made pull-out pot and pan racks that cover it anyways. I have a video on those, by the way. I love those racks every time I use them. Yes, I do have a turntable holder on my to-do list, but in the meantime, I was too impatient to not have a temporary setup. So I moved the end tables, I made those too, and have a video on them, to the back of my couch so that I could plug in my unit and start enjoying some records. Honestly, I thought this project was going to be much harder than what it was, but what a functional thing having an outlet in the middle of a room. If you're looking to wire in an outlet, I'll leave you a link to a playlist as I've done several videos at this point on the subject. Hopefully at least one of them helps you out. I'll see you on my next project. I think the only reason this project was successful is because I had so many supervisors on hand. Thanks for the support, guys.